Before I start this video, I want to take some time and talk a little bit about Clowney. Now, I know some of you guys are going to be asking me what are my thoughts on the whole Jadeveon Clowney situation. I don't really want to talk about that. I'm going to wait until Monday to make a video on that topic. The reason being is because the Texans have until Monday to reach an agreement, and even though it's been reported that the Texans and Jadeveon Clowney are nowhere near close in agreement, and even though I believe that the Texans and Clowney aren't going to reach an agreement by the deadline, I don't want to make a video on it because, the way these Texans have been operating this offseason, it's just been unpredictable. First you had the Tytus Howard thing, and then you had the random firing of Brian Gain. Two moves that literally no Texans fan could have said that they were predicting it, because that was just unexpected. So I just don't know what these Texans are doing, honestly. So maybe out of nowhere they reach an agreement with Clowney, but that's just wishful thinking. But again, you never know. These Texans used to be so predictable. Now you don't even know what they're gonna do, honestly. But yeah, now let's talk about this whole GM thing. Yesterday it was reported that the Texans were gonna go into the season without a GM, and I love it, honestly. I love it, and I know fans of other teams, national media people, local media people are gonna trash the Texans for not having a GM, and guess what? They totally deserve the backlash they're getting for not getting their guy, because Nick Caserio was their guy, but the Texans backed out of it. They looked like wimps yet again. The Patriots slapped them around, nothing new. So the Texans deserve to get made fun of. You hop on Twitter and you look at posts about the Texans, and everyone's calling them an incompetent franchise, a dumpster fire. And, the Texans went and they looked for that, and they got it, and they're going to have to deal with that. Now, just because they're calling the Texans dysfunctional, dumpster fire, all this stuff, doesn't mean it's true. They might seem dysfunctional, and they might be dysfunctional, but in my opinion, going without a GM for the season was a best case scenario for the Texans. And honestly, even missing out on Nick Caserio is the best case scenario for the Texans. On the surface level, it might not look that way, but I think once I explain myself, you guys are going to agree. Let's just take a look at these scenarios I have, how things could have played out for the Texans this upcoming season. Look, this is scenario 1. In this scenario, the Texans don't fire Brian Gain. So, look, the Texans don't fire Brian Gain. Then they go into the season. At the end of the season, Bill O'Brien gets fired because he didn't meet the expectations. And now you're hiring a new head coach with Brian Gain as your GM. And let's be honest, about 90% of the fan base hated Brian Gain. So let's be real here. In this scenario, you already got rid of Bill O'Brien, who most of you guys also hate. So in this scenario, obviously, you get rid of Bill O'Brien, but you're still stuck with a GM that you don't like in Brian Gain. And now Cal McNair has Brian Gain helping him in a search for a new head coach. Would you really trust the direction the team was going in if that was a scenario? Because honestly, I wouldn't feel too comfortable about it. And now here's scenario 2. The Texans fire Brian Gaine, and then they hire Nick Caserio. So in this scenario, they succeed. So in this scenario, regardless of the outcome of the season, Bill O'Brien would stay as a head coach. You know, say the Texans go 7-9. Guess what? Bill O'Brien would be coming back for 2020. Would you really feel comfortable in the direction the team would be going if that happened? Because look at it this way. We go get Nick Caserio, the guy Bill O'Brien has been wanting for the past 3 years. We go get him. He's his GM. And now they're linked to each other. And I'm pretty sure, you know, if Cal McNair walks up to Nick Caserio and tells him, hey, I want to fire Bill O'Brien. Well, you know, guess what? Nick Caserio and Bill O'Brien, they're best buds. So Nick Caserio's going to say, no, give him another chance, please. I promise you. We'll get it right this season. This was my first season here. So that's going to happen. So obviously Cal McNair is going to give Nick Caserio and Bill O'Brien a chance. So the Texans would be stuck with Bill O'Brien for longer. Not only that, they'll be stuck even heavier in the whole former Patriots thing. And I know a lot of you guys don't like that. So let's be real. Do you guys really want that scenario playing out? Yes, there's a chance the Texans succeed. But, I mean, still, you know, you're kind of risking it there. And then there's scenario 3, which is the one that is currently happening right now. And that's the Texans fired Brian Gaine. They couldn't get Nick Caserio. So now it puts Bill O'Brien in a situation where he either sinks or swims. You know, your job is on the line. This is it. No more excuses. You got to show us something. And the reason why I think this is the best scenario out of all of them is because this scenario only ends in 2 ways. And in my opinion, they're both win. It's a win-win situation. So, you know, the first way it could end is Bill O'Brien proves everyone wrong. He takes the Texans to new heights. And the following season, the Texans finally get Nick Caserio because he's no longer going to be under contract with the Patriots. So the Texans get the GM they want. Bill O'Brien, you know, coaches well. He changes his ways. He gets better. He improves. The Texans reach new heights. The fans are happy. So, you know, the Texans let Bill O'Brien get the guy he wants. And now Bill O'Brien has a guy who he thinks he can trust, a guy who the league thinks is really good in Nick Caserio. And the Texans trend in a good direction. Now, the other way this could end is Bill O'Brien completely fails to meet expectations. And keep in mind, expectations are higher with Cal McNair. I've said it before. I believe it was like around February. Pat D. Stat reported on Twitter that Cal McNair was still pissed about the Eagles game. That was sign number 1, that expectations were higher. Sign number 2 was, you know, that Brian Gaine was fired after, 17, 18 months. So, obviously, expectations are higher. So, Bill O'Brien, him going 11-5 and losing in the divisional round or wild card round, that ain't going to cut it. The Texans have to reach an AFC championship game. Expectations are higher. So, if Bill O'Brien flops, if the Texans suck, if expectations are not met, then Bill O'Brien is going to get fired. And then guess what? The Texans are now in a situation where they're searching for a GM and a head coach. And what has pretty much 75% of Texans fans been wanting for the past, I don't know, let's say 6 years. What have Texans fans been wanting? A culture change from the top. And how does that happen? new head coach, new GM. At the same time, that's how you get a culture change. So if the Texans suck next year, then the Texans are getting a complete overhaul, coaching staff and front office, clean house, and I mean, most of you guys should be happy because this is what you guys wanted, or most of you guys wanted. Can't, speak for all you guys, but from what I've seen on Twitter, YouTube comments, Reddit, all these places, most people have been wanting a culture change, and there's a possibility that the Texans could just completely overhaul everything after the season. And in my opinion, that's exciting because, for as long as I can remember, the Texans have been the same kind of bland franchise for a while. So, let's just see how things play out. Maybe Bill O'Brien, proves everyone wrong, or maybe things go how I think they're going to go. And the way I think things are going to go is the Texans are going to reach the playoffs, but same results are going to happen. Typical wild card divisional round loss, and Bill O'Brien will get fired. That's how I expect things to play out, and I think that is the best case scenario. Now, as far as, who the guys in charge are now, it's just a bunch of people in the front office, including Jack Esterby and Chris Olsen, as well as a couple other guys. But in my opinion, it's just the Texans trying to hide that Bill O'Brien is in fact the GM for the season, because if the Texans came out and said Bill O'Brien's the GM for the season, fans would riot. So, yeah, I'm honestly happy the way things are playing out. And honestly, they really shouldn't be playing out this way. But low-key, it's a good things are playing out this way. And the Texans totally deserve all that backlash they're getting. But I will say this, man. I'm pretty sure the Texans didn't intend things to go this way. But at the end of the day, this is the best way things could have gone. And believe me, for you guys that are pissed about all this, believe me, it can be so much worse. And not having a GM is not an issue, in my opinion. I would rather not have a GM than to have a bad GM, Like, would you rather have the Giants GM or have no GM? I think the answer to that is pretty clear. So, yeah, be grateful that at least the Texans aren't that stupid to hire a random guy at GM. And, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about this topic. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.